Today we're breaking down AI governance in 2026, regulation, risk, and readiness, and what leaders need to understand beyond the AI hype. We all know as AI adoption accelerates, governance, risk, management, and regulatory readiness are quickly becoming audit and board level priorities. And that's why you're all here today, I'm sure. Yet many organizations are still unclear on what AI governance actually means, what regulations truly require, and how to move from frameworks to execution. Today, we're going to focus on that. We're going to focus on security leaders, GRC teams, and executives need to be thinking about now as we are well into 2026 here. So we're joined by a really great panel today. Our panel is from coast to coast, and I'm your host with the most. My name's Jerry Sisson. I'm CRO of EdgeRealm.ai, if you want to look us up on the web. I'm going to be moderating today's discussion between Roitblat. He is the Chief AI Officer and CTO at Reliath AI. We've got Garret Grajek, our fearless leader, and he's the CEO of YouAttest. Many of you know him, especially repeat folks. Welcome back, by the way. Yves Binda is he's the Senior Vice President of Solutions Architect at Reliath. And then we have Asha Mahesh, who's the Data and Technology Strategist. Currently, you are at Johnson & Johnson, and you are an independent as well. I'm Jerry Sisson. I'm the CRO of EdgeRealm. For all of you that don't know who EdgeRealm is or what we do, we provide high-performance compute at the edge, as close to the data collection source as possible for you running your AI models, and we leverage immersion cooling, so it's a very low power and water consumption. Everybody's trying to boil the ocean for AI in these big data centers, and quite frankly, if your data is and you're running your AI models out in the cloud, well, good luck getting the chocolate back out of the milk, right? It's like the maids at the rich people. All those AI bots that are managing all that infrastructure is like the maids at the rich people's house. They can't unsee what they see. And so our recommendation is, sure, run your applications. Cloud has its purpose, but keep your most precious crown jewels back in your own environment. And we give you the ability to do that without building a big data center. And we build GRC wrapper around that. So that's what we do. I want to kind of open it up for the panel to introduce each of themselves. Let's start with you, Herb. Introduce yourself, and then we'll go down the list. Just take about a minute.
Hey, hi. Thanks for having us. I'm Herb Roitblat. I'm the CTO and Chief AI Officer of Reliath AI. Been in this business for quite some time and been doing AI for at least 40 years. Very happy to be on this panel with so many smart people. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you for coming. How about you, Garret? You want to give yours real quick?
YouAttest GRC. That's where the governance and compliance been running this company YouAttest for 5 years. Awesome. And thanks, Jerry, for getting on and the team.
You bet. So, Yves, how about you? Yeah, you're on mute, Yves.
Yep, you got it. Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to be here. My name is Yves Binda. I'm a Vice President and Solution Architect and Head of Product at Reliath AI. I've been with Reliath for a short period of time, but what we have been able to get into and put into a new way of looking at AI is really remarkable. And I'm excited to be here and to be talking with so many interesting people who have been doing AI almost as long as I've been alive. And I get today to sort of push some ideas into spaces perhaps that can drive the conversation into an interesting direction.
Awesome. Asha?
Yeah, no, happy to be here. I am I would say, strategic AI and digital health leader with 20 plus years of experience in pharmaceutical R&D, commercial, specializing in the, I would say, end-to-end delivery of regulatory grade and what we call it like a GXP compliant AI solutions, and also multimodal data platforms. So I do work with cross-functional teams that including like a legal, medical, regulatory, as well as like a variety of business functions to scale AI, I would say governed AI, data products, and also put together a kind of operational, like whether it's an ML ops or a LLM ops, to drive the precision medicine solutions for both, I would say, R&D and commercialization of drug treatments.
Awesome. Wow. I'm honored to be here with all of you guys. You know, you all are very smart people, much smarter than I, and I'm delighted to learn here as well myself. So I want to remind the audience, this is a live session, and the audience questions are encouraged. So please drop them in the comments as we go. So let's kick it off. I want to start, Garret, with you. What can the industry expect around regulations and governance? You know, we're talking about today.
I think that is the topic of conversation and why people registered in droves for this. What I think to what we should be expecting, and we just have to be honest about this, is just look at what was going down in the courts with Google and Microsoft, and that was 10 years, 15 years in the coming. That was around social media, okay? Mm-hmm. And what it basically said is, I don't care what you thought your governance was. This is what you're responsible for. Now,
yeah,
that's, kind of a the sky is falling, a FUD type of response. There are good guidelines already out there about AI governance, which I've been working with companies on and Reliath on what is expected of us. And we'll definitely get into those. So I would say a good place, what I would say is there is no question in my mind that the practices and procedures that we are implementing today will appear in the courts 5-10 years from now. Okay. Now, that being said, what can we do about people who actually care about this, about security, about delivering good products and good AI solutions? What can we do? Okay, I think what we should do is look at the governance that's been put out there by the groups like the ISO 42001, the NIST AI RMF, and the OWASP Top 10, and start from there. And we'll get into it, but I think that's where we need to start.
So that leads me into my next question, and I'm going to aim this at you, Asha. You know, in regulated industry like pharma, how are you guys thinking about these AI risks in the context of those existing frameworks that he's mentioning? Versus waiting on a new AI specific laws. Are you guys mapping AI governance to existing controls or building something entirely new?
Yeah, that's a great question. In terms of, I would say, no. I mean, it's a blend of both per se. Right. First of all, I think we do have to map, especially EU AI Act, right? ISO, you mentioned ISO 4201 and all those things. Mapping is I would say, the foundational approach. But also have, and also on top of it, we also have to map to the internal guidelines as well, right? In terms of what we want to do. Typically, what happens is when we really look at the governance, it's always the way it starts in a large enterprise like ours is the very first reaction the governance board does is saying no, we can't do that. It's very difficult and all those things. So we are now thinking of approaches of not saying no versus carving out the pathway to how to do safely. Yes, right. What is a safe mechanism? How do we actually follow the ISO as well as the EU AI Act? What are the I would say framework we need to put in place, especially the framework in the sense like build at the enterprise level, those frameworks and the tools to implement that responsible AI at the infrastructure level. Make that governance as an operating system within the organization, and also develop, I would say, internally some tools. One thing is we can look at ISO and all those things. It's a checklist, right? We can check the boxes, but how are we checking those boxes in terms of the actual implementation and integration within the business workflow is somewhat like it varies by organization and also their risk appetite per se. So what we do typically is risk-based governance. Not everything has to follow to the nth level. It's based on the risk. So if it is something internally facing that's used by, I would say, internal folks, that's a different risk versus if it is a patient safety issue, if it is used in the clinical decision support, if it is used for the diagnosis versus also the marketing, that's a totally different risk level. So building that, I would say, risk-based governance is the approach that we take, and also doing at the like enterprise level, centralized level, building that infrastructure, that AI, like ground truth, I would say, operating system, and also updating, like for example, CI/CD pipelines and all those things to do that AI right from the get-go, entire life cycle. Plus, and also a sort of a both centralized and decentralized approach. What I mean by decentralized is every business function has the flexibility to take that risk-based governance approach and implement what is needed for that business functions. Yeah.
Yeah, I got you. So, Garret, many enterprises already have AI policies documented, right? What's the biggest gap between policy and operational governance that you see in the real organizations?
And I know Herb's going to kill this when we talk about AI and operational. That's where Reliath really comes in strong. Okay, is operationalize AI in a governance way. Here, YouAttest, what I focus on, and what I think is the right answer to the question is operational. Is what are your practices and procedures, right? Nothing wrong. All the documents, as Asha said, you can start with the check boxes of ISO 42001. They say, what are your policy? Great. Going forward, what is your practice and procedure? What I mean by that is the quote ISO 4201 Annex A 8211. It basically says straight out, you shall have defined roles for the access to all the key procedures. And what are you talking about, Garret? Well, who collected the data? Who owns the data? Who's in charge of retraining the data? And are these lists and are these users in a way that you can actually manage? Guys, that reads usually some type of group that you put people in and out. So roles and attestation of the roles is key to governance of AI, just the way it is for everything else. That's what's operational. Theoretical is, sure, great, I got a policy. Well, what are your practices and procedures moving forward?
Yeah, totally agree. So Asha, in a highly regulated enterprise like where you're at, where does AI governance most often break down? Is it strategy, execution, adoption? Is it because the cloud provider is the customer is pretty much restricted by their AI, their governance, their GRC policies?
Yeah, in terms of where it breaks down, we actually do very well in the strategy space because we are all excited, right? Everyone is excited, and we have the leadership the support and all those things. So laying down the strategy, relatively the easy part per se, and it's the execution that gets tricky, right? To even Garret's point is looking at a policy, looking at a checkbox, how do we actually practically implement that within an organization of our size? That's where it actually gets tricky per se. I just spoke about centralized versus decentralized governance, right? So where do we actually draw that line versus centralized versus decentralized? So in an organization like ours, like one size fits all does not work well. Like it has to be decentralized to allow that flexibility for each business function to implement their own risk-based, I would say, governance. So the way the way it works is I remember one thing though. I recall the days when we were working on when we were all new to the Gen AI large language models. We were all excited to implement that. So our organization set up this whole centralized governance board at the enterprise level. So every Gen AI use case had to go through this governance board for the approval, which became extremely slow and inefficient. Everything had to wait like several months, even like 6 to 8 months to get the approval. So instead of that, I would say implement that hub and spoke model. So in the hub, build the enterprise tools to Garrett's point, like write the policies and also the practical way of implementing those policies, and
What would
then
you
let
say
the
the hardest part
decentralized.
of that is? What would you say the hardest part of that is of implementing policies that they can actually use on a day-to-day basis?
Yes, absolutely. It has to be, I would say, integrated into the workflow, the day-to-day workflow. Its policy should not live in a document where somebody is gonna. We can't trust people to open up a policy and read and then to act. It has to be somehow integrated into the ways of working. That's what I would say.
Yeah. And Garrett, from your perspective as a security and compliance professional, what do you see auditors asking about AI systems in 2026? You know, what aren't they consistently asking today?
Uh, what the auditors I've talked to have said straight out to me that what they're seeing in their AI audits is that the documentation of the building, of the creation, of the assigning of roles does not exist. And they literally, the ones I've talked to, and I will not name names, have said that they were literally taking in making up, not making up, but no, basically making up this because the attention to governance from day one was not in the project. So that's what we're
Hmm.
seeing. And no one's being faulted here. I mean, we're all, one thing about AI is everyone's running at the speed of light to get it out the door. So that's where it's key to start looking at, hold it, what are the existing regulations? Like your first question, they're not regulations. What are the existing guidances? Look at the frameworks, look at the, what's out there, and then start practicing your procedures. So the right way is when we start from scratch, or if we're in the middle, go back and take a look. Take a look at, what have you done? Did you have policies? Did you assign roles? Are those roles being checked and verified? That's would be.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so that leads us into a solution. Let's talk about a solution around all this. How do we automate this, right? And Herb, this is, I think you're why we're here. Is you guys, this is an area where you guys can really help. Why did you feel the need to develop what you call the truth engine or Reliath AI?
Yeah, well, I want you to talk more about the actual application to meeting regulations. But we developed this model because we're tired of hallucinations, tired of the indeterminacy, the flakiness, if you will, of the models. We're tired of the hype
Mm-hmm.
that many of the purveyors of these models are claiming they've got genius level code, when really what they're doing is imitating stuff they've been trained on. We've got companies now paying $1.5 million a day to hire 30,000 consultants to give example reasoning to the model so they can pretend to be reasoning. It's just it's a house of cards. And what people have done to protect themselves from that is they've built all these guardrails. The guardrails are defeatable, and they're problematic. They're incomplete. And so we thought the solution was originally to start with the idea of self-curation. That is, for an AI to be autonomous, what it needed to do was to curate its own training set. So it didn't include the junk like Warhammer 40,000, which is a fantasy game telling you how to commit blood sacrifices.
Mm-hmm.
People don't need that for business.
No.
And then along the way, we came up with this idea of a deterministic, truth-based model based on facts, where the facts are determined by the customer. Not We don't have a privileged access. We're not God. We don't have privileged access to absolute truth. But every customer, in the context of regulation, has an idea of what they want to say how they want to say it, who they want to say it to, and we support that. Maybe this is a little Pollyannish, but aside from the regulation, every company has a commitment to be effective in what it is they're doing. And if they're jumping on this stochastic parrot bandwagon because they want to be cool, they're not going to be able to control what they're doing, how they're doing it. They're not going to be able to meet their own standards. And we're seeing now that the courts are not supporting that kind of wild, wild west approach to intelligence. At the same time, the AI has, in some sense, created this problem. So we're going to need AI to deal with the problem and prevent it.
Yeah.
And that's where the kind of stuff that Yves working on really
AI
comes
for
into
AI. Yeah.
fight fire with fire.
Yeah.
Don't come to a gunfight with a candle.
Right. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
Yves, over to you. As a veteran of the AI industry, what was it about Reliath AI that attracted you? Why did you feel this was a better AI engine for enterprises to build their AI off of?
I think it's exactly what Herb described there. And what Herb described may sound like it is sort of poo-pooing the model that's been laid out, which is Gen AI, right? Everything is based on Gen AI. That is when the moment that everyone started paying attention to AI is when Gen AI came on the scene. More importantly, conversational AI. And confusing that against what AI has done very well for many years is to be deterministic. And what Herb is describing is in this marriage of the two, neurosymbolic AI, which is exactly what Herb has been able to give birth to, like this left brain, right brain paradigm that now makes AI not only, yes, capable of coming up with wonderful prose and creativity, but at the same time bounded into actual facts and truth. And how could you not want to just hang out with someone like that and just pick his brain and operationalize? I heard Asha talk about execution, and that's exactly what Reliath and the truth engine of Reliath has allowed us to do now, is because we have the deterministic traces of facts and their provenance, and you're able to now create much more assured experiences. And this is not about frameworks and about paperwork. This is about runtime. It's about runtime, being able to take the actions and actually see the result and test them out towards values that you have set out to do as an organization. And I think that's why most organizations thought it was going to be just a snap of the fingers and everything is wonderful because Gen AI is so clever, it can solve everything. And now they're realizing that there are certain things that you don't want to leave to a large language model that doesn't understand what facts are, what truth is.
Well, starters, the human element, and you often talk about the user experience.
Yeah.
In government and governance issues, where do organizations underestimate the human side of AI governance?
Yeah, the human side of AI governance. And actually, I have a graphic, and I like to do this because it's important to be able to go through.
Yeah, Garret, you have that graphic. You mind popping that up on the screen real quick?
Graphics to talk about what exactly it is that we're trying to build. And what you're seeing here is sort of like the 5 stages of the foundational values of a AI agent, if you want, right? Mm-hmm. This is the on the left, you have the constitutional ground, if you want. What the system really actually cares about, like what it's there to do. And this is the place that most organizations will skip. They will skip because you want to get to the functionality, and you want it to do things for you. And this is where the industry has been for the last couple of years, right? You have these chatbots, you have these agents, you have these places like OpenClaw that are scaling extremely fast. Yes, they can do a lot of things, but the problem is the trust. How do you jump that trust gap? How do you get over to the other side? Well, you can't really do that simply by just giving someone a white code and saying that this is a trustworthy source. You have to be able to prove it. And until we're able to trust that, jump that gap. This is the experience layer. This is the experience design, if you want, of AI, is the trust layer. And then you'll get to integrity and eventually get to wisdom, which is what everyone wants. Everybody wants these old integrated chatbots that can carry you across different experiences or kind of different modalities. But if you don't have the security layer that is able to be laid out across from the foundation, then you will struggle. And without truth, you can't get there. There's no trust without truth, in other words. So that is sort of the way that we are ourselves implementing AI from the ground up.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that. It was a great visual as well. So that was awesome. So Garret, back over to you. AI governance discussions often focus on models and regulations, but where does identity governance? We're talking about the user experience. The user experience, we're boiling that down to the identities, right? So where does governance over identities become the missing control layer that most organizations overlook?
It's just, I did as soon as 4201 came out, and in this AI, I well, first in this AI before it came out, when the LLMs were there, I did a review, a 5-hour review. It was like every third question in this AI RMF, and then the same for the ISO, is about accountability. Asha started her question about the transparency laws passed. Okay, the transparency laws passed, the AI Act of EU, and the California SB 53. Transparency, guys, in legal, in my thing, is accountability. It says, okay, you state something. You state this is fact. Who is it that is stating that? And what the governance laws do is say straight out, you should not only have a document, not only have a practice, but you should be able to attest to who the people are who are responsible for that document, who are responsible for that policy, and who are responsible for the operationalization of that policy. And that's where identities come in that say, okay, and you get down to brass tacks, who is, operationalizing the collection of data, who's the operationalizing the creation of the algorithms, who's operationalizing the testing of the software, who's operationalizing the actual implementation of the software, and are those roles actively reviewed and documented?
Yep. Excellent response.
And this really kind of sort of calls for a collapse of silos as we've known them in the enterprise, right? It requires to build experiences around flow of information and who has access to it. And for that, the systems that we've had, the legacy systems, just not built for that. And you have to sort of go into this starvation mode for a while, where you are really sort of taking very small projects on at a time, but that you're building towards a future where you'll be able to integrate more and more important flows into it. But it's got to start somewhere that's manageable.
And I think that's where it plays into the founding value you're talking about. Who actually is going to really benefit from these AI models, right?
Yeah.
So you taught, one of my questions for you was what governance capabilities must be designed from the start. We already talked about that, the founding values. Are there other things that you'd want to suggest they start with and not bolt them on later within those founding values, other than, besides identities and who values? Yeah.
I mean, as the Reliath team likes to say, you can't rely on the stochastic parrot, right? That's what the Herb said, Chris as well. And to have the truth model, so you can actually have a foundation that allows you to now build upon. Because any kind of governance that is built on LLM is just built on quicksand. It's just not reliable.
Right, and at enterprise scale, these AI systems become interconnected and hard to unwind. I mean, like I said earlier, you can't get the chocolate out of the milk,
Correct.
right? And then they become intertwined and become, you get hallucinating AI models out there. It just becomes a madness.
Yeah.
How does
Well,
Reliath help organizations to maintain control and as the complexity grows, especially when multiple teams are building and deploying models simultaneously across the organization?
what I want to say is there's really two kinds of regulation that we need to deal with. One is the regulation to protect vulnerable populations. We're not going to really we're not going to regulate the technology because it's constantly changing. But what we can regulate is protection for people. The other kind of regulation that we need to be concerned about here is reliability. That's built into our name. The idea is that you should be able to say, how do you know this is true? How do you know that what you're saying is supportable? What's the evidence for it? And for a lot of things, to be fair, the Gen AI models can do a reasonable job of it if it's not too outside what they've been trained on. But ultimately, the goal is to say, if I say this to you, you can count on it. And an example is the Air Canada AI agent who sold a ticket for way cheap. And Air Canada, I believe it was Air Canada, didn't want to stand behind it. Well, that makes troubles that are not directly regulations, but make business problems. So it's not just the letter of the
Yeah.
law; it's how do you run your business and how do you keep it trustworthy and the other part of our name.
Yeah.
I missed that one. Did they end up having to honor that ticket, or did they?
I believe that's what happened.
Yeah. Can I get the phone number to that agent? Yeah. All right. Well, so great. Well, and Yves, did you have any comments on top of that that you'd like to share? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think the foundation is what we need to go back to again and again.
Yeah.
It's we jumped the gun because of course the technology, the capabilities are so attractive, and we started going after products instead of actually answering questions that we actually need answered, and building the products around those questions. If we go back to that sort of that mentality, we realize that there are some things that we don't need a generative model. No, we don't. We need you to be able to parse through vast information, but we need you to be able to do this in a way that I can count on 100% every single time. Without that, it's just not trustworthy enough at the enterprise level.
Yeah.
In order to do that, it is better, as you said, don't try to boil the ocean all at once. Just take a piece that is manageable and work on that. And by you working on that, you will now start building the muscle necessary to climb up this mountain, because it is going to be a climb. It's not going to be a snap of a finger. I mean, open claw, yes, looks fantastic, but that's that's 2 levels of abstraction higher than we need to be. And I think that until we start working on the runtime mechanisms that to be able to get repeatable, trustworthy answers and actions from AI, you're going to have a hard time scaling this anywhere.
Yeah.
What you're saying, Yves, is don't build the second story of your house before you
build the first, right? That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
So let's get into the good stuff that I think we all want to see. I believe are you prepared to do a demo, Herb? Are we going to see?
Yeah, I can.
So show us how Reliath better addresses governance for enterprises who care about governance, right? And especially over the AI they're developing.
I just want to say something now that Herb is going to show the Reliath is to everybody's point. In a regulated industry, systems have to be auditable, traceable, explainable, whatnot, and all those things. This is nothing new. We've been following this for many years, right? All these regulatory policies. But in the world of that's AI and LLMs, this traceability has become difficult because we can't trace back to the billions of sources of data that was trained on, right? That's just not possible the way it is built right now. So that's where I think, how do we explain ourselves with those deterministic traces to you mentioned about, right? How do we get to the somewhat like a deterministic, that way we can make the systems more, these AI systems, I would say, more auditable and traceable. That's where I think the plugin for you, Herb, is the source of truth. Where
Right.
do you actually show that source of truth, the facts that you used to generate a document or a diagnostics, whatnot, everything that you do? Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, everything in every fact in our model is traceable to its source. And so that makes it auditable. What I'm going to do is show one of our partners has made uh, an application. We're talking about airline support, airline customer support. So I'm going to show that, and I'm going to show the difference between what we do and what a standard model, which is what they used before we came along, does. I'm not going to focus so much on regulation. Yves got some demo that he's happy to show off for that, but I'm going to show off our technology and how it solves the problem. The standard method of agents out there in the world is you ask it a question and the agent will go and gather information from wherever it can gather information. And the result is you get a generic answer. Um, Instead, what we have for the Reliath part of the, for in both cases, the model has been trained on British Airways policy and just a small sample of documents about British Airways policies. But it illustrates how we can use this deterministic kind of information to make sure we tell the truth. And I don't have the link handy to demonstrate how we go back to the original source, but I probably can do that
Yeah, as you're bringing that up, we did have a couple of questions that came up in the comments here. I want to just pose those as you're bringing your demo up. Maybe we can get those
Okay.
answered real quick. Most of the LLMs from Jeff, most of the LLMs are slanted to prioritize feedback to traditional organizational assets or popular opinion based on volume of likes and social media piles. I believe that's a statement he's making. And he asks the question, by agent evolution cycle, are you referring to agents like system prompts?
In our system, we don't have prompts per se. Let me show an example of that, and we'll come back to it. So first off, I have to enable the sharing.
While you're doing that, I'm going to ask another question from the audience. Denzel is asking, many organizations are adopting governance frameworks, but fewer have operational systems that enforce policy and capture runtime evidence across training and inference. Do you see governance moving toward evidence-based execution layers, or will it remain primary framework driven? Maybe Asha, maybe.
Well, I think Yves should answer that. He's got
Okay, yeah, Yves.
that's his thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's most of the governance that is in place today, that is based on frameworks. So they're just checklists. That's right. You have a checkbox like, have you done this? Have you done that? It's sort of putting guardrails on this problem of AI. When you have a freight train coming down and you have these whimsical guardrails, you know exactly what's going to happen. I like the analogy more of constraints, and that's what deterministic systems help us do. You build constraints or very clear pipelines of where your information is able to go. And yes, that is a runtime application, as the question that was posed. The runtime application is what gives you the control. Whenever would an organization cede control for the sake of examples, which is what we're doing with AI essentially? We're throwing in a bunch of examples of data sets, and it's like, oh, make sense of it for us. No, we want the control to come back into the hands of the human. And that's the way that the deterministic systems can actually be used in order to give you much more a traceable from start to finish. You can replay it. You can know exactly the decision points. Where did things click off and for what reason, and tweak it over time in this runtime environment until you want a decision that you want. I think that governance organizations have no other choice but to get into the runtime application business if they want to be able to do anything about AI. It's not after the fact. You have to be able to constrain the behavior and just use the conversational part for prose generation, not for actually logical thinking. That's what the truth engine is for. And marrying the two together really creates the neurosymbolic system that's going to take Gen AI from being a toy to a tool in organizations.
Right. So let me lead
And
into
let
another.
me go on top of Yves, because that was
Go ahead.
a good answer. And y'all, having developed a GRC product from scratch, that's where it starts. It starts with the frameworks. It starts with that, but that's what guides Yves and Herb and myself in saying, okay, this is what the information and this is the practice and the procedures that need to be documented and need to be enforced. Okay, so it's this, because there was another question. I'm just going to jump ahead, Jerry. About
Go ahead.
and a great question about why do we keep bringing up ISO 4201?
Yeah, I was about to ask that question.
Yeah, and it's because it's prescriptive. Okay, the other one I like and I think should be documented and discussed more is OWASP Top 10. It's very prescriptive. It's very okay. These are your practices and procedures you should have. Does that mean that NIST AI RMF is not very prescriptive? I personally do not think so. Okay, but that's why you'll see your auditors who are asked. We need to ensure that our AI is governable. They will lean to the ISO 4201. It's pretty extensive, but good GRC people always break down what's relevant to your organization and make it a germane to what you're building. But that's where you see it. So my answer is straight out that yes, the frameworks are where we start, and then the solution builders, the Yves, the Ervs, the Garret out there, we go out there and say, great, this is what has been determined by the community as being relevant, and then we execute on it.
And I would even add to that, Garret, that was a very good point that you made. It starts with the framework, absolutely, and then it goes to the execution, and it needs to go back to the framework to see if we actually even hit close and make tweaks, right? And this is why really the walls of the organizations need to collapse completely, because the collaboration between the team needs to be much tighter than it's ever been for anything else. You can't hang on to things. You can't hang on to knowledge and trying to be strategic about it, because you're holding on to something that requires an all hands on deck approach in order to be able to do anything worthwhile with it.
Right. We had one other question from. Are you ready to go, Herb, with the demo?
I am, but this is more entertaining.
Yeah, good. it's flowing well. Yeah. So we have another LinkedIn user who asked the question: as many organizations are moving to AI-based solutions, how can one transition I'm assuming in their career from a data governance to AI-specific role?
I don't think you really have to transition.
I like that, Herb. I like your answer.
Yeah, I think the principles of data governance, the principles are the same.
Mm-hmm.
You may have to learn a few tools, but I don't think there is any real change that's necessary.
Yeah, I think you need to raise your hand to say, I can do that, in your organization.
The bottom line is AI is a tool. It's not going to replace people, despite a lot of the hype that's to the contrary. It's a tool that will make people more effective when it's used right. And as Yves pointed out, there's no magic bullet. It's going to take effort, but the principles and the methods are going to be the strategies certainly are going to be the same, whatever tools you use.
Yep.
Yeah,
and as Asha pointed out, none of this is new. This is all same old. We've just made a bigger mess of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when I say it straight out, if you look at the frameworks and stuff, they really do lean off of just classic good practices around cyber. Okay, and they say, hold up, what's the key component for AI? The key component for AI is data, and then we start getting into the problems with data. Okay, how are you storing it? Who's keeping track of it, right? Are you ever removing it? Are you collecting too much data? Are you taking that data and removing the dangerous components that you really don't need? That's where the guidance is. So to the answer, whatever. I mean, this is a real question, because my son's in cyber right now, going through college, and I say, make sure you take your data classes and understand, both the technical storage of data and the problems with storing of data.
Yep. So we got one more. Jeff says, you talk a lot about governance of AI. How about knowing when the baselines change that create gaps before diving deep into the weeds of governance? Anybody want to tackle that? Respond to that?
The baselines are always changing, and the missing ingredient in so much of AI is critical thinking, of taking a look at where you are, where you want to be, and where the gaps are, and evaluating them. Honestly isn't exactly the right word I'm looking for, but with an open mind to know where you need to be and where you really are, as opposed to where you wish you are. So we need more of that.
Yeah.
And we need the tools to be able to identify what the facts are, what the reality is, as opposed to thinking, well, in a few more years we're going to have a different kind of reality. No, we're going to have the same reality with different kind of tools. And knowing how your baseline is, where your baseline means, what are your facts? What do you know? How do you know it? How do you evaluate it? That evaluation is still a critical human skill that we need to cultivate.
Yeah.
So Garret, the advice I would give your son is get a good liberal arts education. Learn not only the data, but learn how to think about problems in general, and keep that in mind when you're when you're going about your governance business.
I like when you took that, Herb, because I was mountain bike with him, and I took in an example and said, what would you need to collect? What data would you need to collect out of this path to turn this into a road? And what whatever, not only what you see, but what you don't see. How often does it rain, right? What is the temperature changes, all that? What data would you need to collect? So I like your answer, Herb, and you always have good thoughts. The general, what's the bigger problem? Yeah.
We got 12 minutes left, you folks, before the top of the hour. If we want to try to keep it within an hour, do we want to move into Herb, are you wanting to show something on the screen?
I can show a couple things here, and if I can figure out how to do it, I assume I clicked that.
So while you're bringing that up,
can you see my screen? Let me ask that.
Let me hold it. Let me wait. Here we go. Add to stage. No, that's it. Can you show?
Okay.
There you go.
That looks good. Okay. So
we got to get whatever.
Here's the airline thing.
You're golden, my friend Herb.
Sorry?
You're golden.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm golden oldie. So they interface with us, and so these data are stored in the Reliath version. If you ask the question, what accommodations do we, meaning British Airways, offer passengers for flight delays? This is the information that we derived directly from British Airways. There's the standard answer to that question goes like this. Here's a summary of the kinds of accommodations we, meaning airlines in general, offer. And here's exactly what British Airways said, and this is what their model said. We have a demo that Asha was involved in. So I'm going to start this over again, and so you can see how it works. Reload the screen. I'm going to look for synuclein. This demo is based on Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, and synuclein is one of the proteins that causes problems in Parkinson's disease. Here. So now I'm going to say, tell me all the facts that you know about synuclein, and it lists out that it knows 21 facts from the sample that it's been trained on, and it represents the sources of those facts. So if I click here, it gives us the exact source of that fact. It also allows us to show this as a graph. So each one of these nodes is one of the entities that we're dealing with in our facts. And here is synuclein. This one here is pathological processes. So we can reason through the graph to find out that synuclein pathological processes are caused by alpha-synuclein aggregation. And this happens to be true. We can also we can generate hypotheses as well, but what I want to show is the question answering like we had before. And now we can ask a question like, how are synuclein and tau protein related? And the first thing we do is generate a factoid from this question, retrieve all the relevant facts, and it says it doesn't know how they're related, but that's an improvement because it says it doesn't know offhand. But if I ask another question like what changes in hippocampus with dementia, it does the same thing again and then gives us a detailed answer. This one takes a little bit longer because it's a longer answer, and we're relying on Gemini to generate the answer from these facts, and Gemini doesn't seem to want to cooperate.
So let's let that come back with an answer. And while we're doing that, we're running out of time, so I want to ask a couple more questions.
Okay.
Let's go back over to you, Asha, for a last question. Looking ahead into 26 here, as this thing explodes, what should leaders prioritize now to ensure their AI programs remain sustainable, compliant, and trusted as regulations tighten?
Yeah, one thing I would say is develop that acumen and as well as the operating system of being more actionable. Don't just say fair, ethical, but how actually boil it down to the actual policies to Garrett's thing, right? What does it even mean, and what is the workflow?
Like SolarWinds did that we're practicing principle of least privilege.
Yes.
Just don't ask us how. Yeah, that was
exactly.
good.
How do you do it? How do you do it?
actually doing that?
That's what it is, because ethics and all those things means different things to different people. How they interpret that, make that clear. right? It doesn't have to be that, I would say, vague. Instead, like very clearly say this is what how we define bias, how we define hallucination, and give people tools to identify them and then take action at the point of care. I would say, not tomorrow. It should not be an afterthought. It should be at the point of usage of that one.
Yeah.
So one other thing I want to say is keep in mind that this is an evolving area. What's good today may not be good tomorrow. Everything is changing around us. So keep your governance very flexible. That way you can change as the the external ecosystem changes with you, as the policies change. So build that observability into everything that you do. As you observe anything changes, bring that into the governance and also be swift in doing that. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. And then there is one more question here that I want to address, but before I do that, I want to give Herb an opportunity as well. And that was, if you were advising boards preparing for AI oversight here in 26, what uncomfortable questions should they be asking themselves that most aren't today? And as you finish up that question, tell them how they can get a hold of Reliath.
They need to be concerned with how they're using AI. I mean, I think there's been a lot of pressure to somehow come up with a way to use AI in their business. You need to be cool, you need to be competitive, but there's not enough thought given to exactly what they want to accomplish with it. And, there's been a number of studies that say most AI projects fail. And I think they largely fail because the goal is to bring AI in rather than the goal is to solve problems. So what I would say is, again, have some critical thought about what it is you want to do, and how you want to do it, and what business problems you want to solve. And if you want to solve real business problems, you need to start with the data that you have, start with the facts that you can derive from those data. It's got to be more deterministic than you can get with a lot of tools. And then, as Asha and Yves and Garret have all said, it's got to be planned from the beginning to be a business process, not just magic that you hope will happen based on that. The easiest way to get a hold of us is at Reliath.ai. It's our website. You can sign up there to make appointments. Every other Thursday, we have a virtual open house where we gather together and talk about this kind of stuff and show the latest technology that we have to share. And
let me give a shout out to that Herb. That's an amazing thing you guys do. 40, 50 people, and they're taking every question known to man about AI and just saying, hey, this is how you should do it. It's an amazing thing that Reliath does.
Yep. And both your emails are first name at Reliath.ai. So you just need to reach out directly. There's one more question here I want to take, and so I can give another plug, I guess plug for EdgeRealm. Victor asked the thoughts on environmental and ethical impact of AI, specifically the mass construction of data centers and mass energy consumption. Wow. That's where EdgeRealm comes in. We believe that everybody, like I mentioned earlier, everybody's trying to boil the ocean with these big data centers. When I say boil the ocean, I mean they're sucking up water. Hundreds of thousands of gallons of water a day to cool these things in an air-cooled environment. And that's where EdgeRealm comes in, and we build small micro data centers, if you will, leveraging immersion cooling, which is low power consumption and almost zero water consumption, depending on which form factor that you need and how much compute you need. And that's really an area we come in, and we wrap in governance, risk, and compliance. Definitely looking at Reliath to partner with. We have other partners that can focus on software supply chain security. We actually cloak it invisible with a cloaking and microsegmentation solution. So that micro data center is for all intents and purposes, it is undiscoverable or invisible. Can't hack what you can't find, right? So
I'll amplify that in that our model is incredibly energy efficient. It takes round off, the amount of energy it requires to do its inference is round off error on the round off error. It's like the best measurement I have is 100 milliwatts resolution, and it takes less than that to produce these answers.
And that's the kind of
So
solutions we're building into the Edge Vault, if you will. Think
yeah,
of the Edge Vault as kind of the walled garden that you get from on your Apple
yeah.
phone, right?
So
Where
so
the
that is what,
solutions that will come in will be solutions like herbs that are low cost, low energy consuming, and that are powerful solutions for the running AI models.
I think we could probably run run a model for every corporation on every stock market in the world in one data center.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I haven't proved that, but
Our
that's my belief.
at EdgeRealm, our mission is to help restore data and process sovereignty to organizations. If you're out in the cloud, you don't have sovereignty over your data. Sorry, just the facts.
Sounds very compatible with what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. So sales at EdgeRealm.ai or Jerry.Sisson at EdgeRealm.ai. You can reach out to us.
Yeah.
Garret.Grajek. Garret, what is your email? I don't have it in front of me.
Grajek. Well, that's
Garret.Grajek
no,
at
I'm kidding.
YouAttest.
Wonderful session, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you.
At info@youattest.com.
If you didn't get your question answered, we will answer it via email to you or back to you via LinkedIn. So I'm sorry, we're run out of time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us and sticking with us. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.